See you guys.
He lives under Amy's desk.
Jeff, you're live.
All right. We are live. Hi, it's Jeff Pulver. And if it's Mondays, it's time for
Ask
the oracles.
Three thumbs up.
And with us, of course, is Amy Amonte, and we have a very, very special guest today. And before we hand off to our special guest, Amy Amonte checking in. How are you? How are things this past week?
We're
good.
Glad to be alive.
We're working on 2 new books. What else is new?
Yeah, really. I'm working on a book about how to learn to read an astrology chart based on the course I did through Soultopia.
Some of you were there, like Joyce.
Yes, and we're also prepping.
Lexi was there?
Yeah, for sure. Lexi was there. And I'm doing a book on it. And we're also, thanks to Michelle Welsh, getting ready to do a astrology and true crime class.
We don't have the links today, but it's going to be looking at the charts of.
I don't know. Jeff just had a great idea.
Uh-oh. We have to change it again?
We have to change it again because it's rockin' true crime, like rockin' Thanksgiving and rockin' New Year's Eve.
I tell you what, that will be a fun podcast, a Rockin' True Crimes podcast. Sign me up.
It's going to be great. I don't. We'll start with Rick
It's
James.
a separate thing.
Okay, it's a separate thing, but we're totally excited to have one of the best astrologers in the world with us today.
Michelle Marie, welcome.
Yay.
Well, thank you so much. It's just wonderful to be here. How are you guys doing with the Saturn-Uranus square?
Well,
aftermath.
Well, for us, it always meant innovate or pay the price.
And we like to do that.
So we've been innovating.
We've been turning old projects into new projects.
We've been.
There's one.
Yes, the Enchanted Worlds. I mean,
it just came out not that long ago.
No, thanks to the supply chain issues, it should have been out a little sooner, but it just came out. And I'm telling you,
thank you, Michelle Marie, for the plug.
Thank you so much, because every other day I read a chapter to Amy. It's my favorite book that I've written after more than 50 books.
I like to be read to about myself.
Everyone.
Don't worry, Jeff. I'll read you some articles about you too. So
Thank you.
And Michelle Marie, what's up with you?
Oh my goodness. Well, the Saturn-Uranus square, basically you posted secure your base again and again and again. And the third one hits. And in our area, Washington State is an island. So all of the passes are closed and slowly opening, tiny little lanes. And we have flooding on all of our freeways. And so the truckers can't get through and the grocery stores are empty. So at least in our area.
Is it a freaky thing or has it happened before?
It happened once in 1997 and a smaller incident happened in 2007.
Wow.
So it happens every now and then, but not this many roads out. Usually it's like either flooding or the passes, but it's both. So, and then go ahead.
Were you prepared?
Yes, because just before the 21st hit, my husband and I went to the grocery store and we got pasta and beans and like everything that we thought we could need in case the power went out or, anything happens. And we're good for, a few weeks. So
awesome.
Yeah.
So we have like a health food store here, a hardware store. I mean, in our house, a fabric store.
We definitely have a fabric store.
A pharmacy of health food supplements, I think.
Right. And people talk about shop their closet. We shop every square inch of this place. I don't know about y'all, but stuff disappears and comes back. I don't know if you've seen this. I think it's all about the dimensionality of life. Because Jeff, I don't know if you've ever been looking for something and then you find it and it's someplace you looked 4 times.
And you just didn't see it.
You don't find it when you look for it.
That's what you want to think. I just didn't see it. But it's either elves or fairies or the thing materializes or dematerializes, because as quantum physics postulates, there's all kinds of different futures and different pasts. And this is for Harry. I've thought that spontaneous healing occurs when somehow in your craziness, you hook up with a different past where the conditions to produce the illness you just had that just spontaneously healed do not exist. So somehow you connect in your little record needle life with a past that does not make you sick, and you end up going into a future where you're not sick.
That's empowering.
If it's true, I mean, I don't know. I'm crazy. So you're all listening to me. So I don't know what to say.
It's a theory. And we're going to talk about some speculation here about trends for 2022. And we're going to all tune in different ways. Jeff is going to take the communications tech. Michelle Marie is going to do the Vedic aspects that are coming up. You're going to do Western astrology and psychic. I'm going to do a little fashion, a little color.
Yeah, but
I got some ideas of what's coming up.
But I just want everybody to know, we have the Babe Ruth of predicting the future as the father of this show. Jeff Pulver has made predictions about the future that we're all living in right now. Talk about a probable future, you know, communications. I mean,
Hey, Jeff, do you care when naysayers say that can't happen?
No.
short answer. Yeah. Yes, you can.
You have to have a hard shell to be a trend predictor.
Well, look what Schopenhauer said. He said a new idea is first ridiculed, then violently resisted, then accepted as it was self-evident. Oh, I knew that all along. You know, that's what happens when it's new.
It's like saying something was something that's super successful. Of course, it was obvious. But no one else did it. But it was obvious.
Right. I mean, you had New World dial-up long before Vonage, right? It wasn't like years.
It was almost 10 years. It was I did free will dial-up in 1995. Vonage became the company in 2001. So it was a number of years ahead of itself. But the idea of using an alternative network, you know, other than the infrastructure we had, right? That was the breakthrough. The other side of it was that in the past, if you wanted to launch a phone company, you actually had to lay down the cables and the wires and everything. And I came up with a concept, and I don't know a polite way to say it, so I call it being a broadband parasite. Basically, let everyone else put down the infrastructure, and let's run on top of it for free. And that's what we did.
Yeah, and Vonage just sold for $5 billion to Ericsson.
6.2. Yeah, it was
What's
crazy.
a billion here or there?
Yeah.
So Jeff, dig in, give us some stuff. You're always talking about Web3. Explain to, in case people don't know what that is.
Well, I'll start from the top and just say that 2022 is a transitional year. It's not going to be the year that we necessarily get to anything definitively and on the tech side, but we're in transition, and just acknowledging that we're in transition is a big thing. So it's sort of understanding change is underway. So Web3, well, you know, in history, if we look back in time to the commercial internet, the commercial internet, let's say, was started somewhere between 93, 94 to about 2006. That's like Web 1. That's when we were reading on the internet, not necessarily being interactive, but reading information. That's when people had websites that looked more like brochures, when commerce started happening. But it wasn't really very dynamic. That while we did have people sharing information, doing self-publishing, it really didn't take off until the read-write web of the Web 2 era, which we're still living in now. And so what's Web 3 about? So Web 3 has lots of different characteristics. The one big word is decentralization. That is that instead of information being centered in one location, it's going to be available all over the place, where no one necessarily is the gatekeeper of that information. Another big trend part with Web3 is the idea of having a DAO, a decentralized autonomous organization. If anyone who's ever worked for a large company and also but actually worked for one of their smaller outpost stores could understand decentralization. Well, there's the main office, the home office, and my office. And sometimes in the local office, you make your own rules, you have your own culture, that you have to look to corporate for some things, but you get to decide on your own what you do. That's sort of what a DAO is. And so you will see in 2022 DAO coming into mainstream as much as NFTs. By the end of 2022, there'll still be many more people who've heard the term NFTs, have no idea what it stands for. That much is definitely accelerating. And as far as what Web3 brings us, we are seeing so what Web 2 gave us was commerce, but people started doing business in Web 1 for that matter. But the idea of doing business has been made easier with some innovations with Web 3, because one of the things it has with it is a whole underlying ecosystem associated with digital currencies. And while it's and so the era of NFTs is a foreshadowing of digital or alternative payment sources or alternative payments that will happen. But in terms of communicating, I do think that we have some changes to make, and we need to understand who we are and how we want to communicate, because what Web 1 gave us was the first sense. Prior to the internet, if any of you were on bulletin boards, you may remember IRC as the text-based chatting platform. Maybe you were on BBSs. This goes back in time. And then with a whole era of instant messaging platforms from AOL and Yahoo and many other places, you had all these distinct networks where people could chat with each other. What happened since then, it's gotten worse. In order to talk to somebody these days, there's so many places that people go, right? You can go, someone could send you a text message, someone could send you an email. Oh, I liked your Facebook post. Oh, that meant that you spoke to me. Oh, I sent you a message on Instagram, or maybe it's WhatsApp, or maybe I saw your TikTok and I said something. Oh, you did something live. I commented. Why didn't you say something back? Excuse me? So as people, we've gotten worse and more diverse in terms of how we share stuff. And frankly, with the recent changes to Facebook, to me, Facebook's become birthday book. I think instead of naming themselves Meta, if Facebook simply would have recognized their true value to the baby boomers and Gen Xers is to be the authoritative source for birthdays, life would be much better. And just use it as birthday book, because it's a good place. You get happiness with birthdays and don't have to deal with anything else, and it's fun. So in terms of where communications is going, we're evolving to find ways, because we've never had such a diverse difference in how different generations communicate, from baby boomers to Gen Y, in all the different ways we communicate. And the fact is that if you are a Gen Yer and listening to the podcast, because I don't necessarily see you in the audience today, but if you're from Gen Y to Gen Z, you've been living in the Web3 world for a couple of years at least. We're catching up, and things are changing as we catch up. And so communications is being redefined, really. Presence matters too. So we communicate, with phone, with just, I'll end on this, with phone calls. There was a time when you called someone's living room and you answered the phone, at least you knew that someone was in the living room and they answered the phone. And people put a priority toward receiving a call, particularly when there's a concept called long distance. So that if you're in New York and someone's calling you from England or someone's calling you from Los Angeles, it's a long distance phone call. Oh my God, stop everything. We have to answer the phone. Oh, who's on the phone? Oh, it's just a friend from Tel Aviv. Click, bye. It's okay, because we no longer value distance. Distance died in the last 15 years. So where we're located doesn't matter anymore.
Good title for your book.
I love all this, Jeff.
Distance died. Wow.
It just did. And so presence. And so now we call people's pockets, not their living rooms. And the whole idea of being online and what that means has shifted. So one day we'll figure out a more effective way to communicate who we are and who we want to talk to. that
was amazing.
That was great, Jeff. I think another thing I see happening, and it kind of springs off what you were saying, that there are so many very specific groups that you can participate in now that are splintered off of other groups. I mean, there's groups for people that have snakes. There's a group. I mean, anything you can name there is, and it's kind of overwhelming. That makes. But I think you're talking about the generations, and that creates some polarity, and there's political polarities and all of that. So within all those, that polarity is making people join together with like-minded people, or who they think is like-minded people, but very, very specific, right?
Yes. And speaking of specific, it's now time for the Vedic perspective on the trends that are going on.
Give us your view.
Shoot us with your best dasha.
Okay. We do have big changes in April, and I know you've been talking about this, Monte. So Jupiter goes into his own sign in Pisces. I know he's already in Pisces in the Western chart, but we're about 25 degrees behind in Vedic because we go by the Earth's axis and not the seasons. So
and you go by the constellations, right?
Yes, exactly. It's the exact, So you got it. Fixed star constellations. So that's good for you, Monte. Jupiter going into his own sign of Pisces. So that'll bring you some luck and, take a little pressure off. Rahu and Ketu, Rahu would be the north node and Ketu would be the south node, are changing signs. They're going from the Taurus Scorpio axis, and they're retrograding because they're always retrograding, into the Aries Libra axis. And so Rahu represents obsessions, Ketu represents rejections. And so looking at your chart and seeing where your north and your south nodes are can tell you what kind of energy you can expect, the shift to expect in April. Saturn briefly enters Aquarius, first degree of Aquarius, Vedic astrology again. And that's going to start Sati for you, Monte. That's basically when Saturn is transiting your 12th house. So watch for expenses, things like that. And then Jeff, you and I are going to be under full Sati in 2023, but we're just starting to dip our toes into it this year. And basically what Sati is Saturn is delivering all of our past karma. So just prepare, take deep breaths, kind of deal with it. I know you're kind of dealing with it right now, as we talked earlier. So we have a partial solar eclipse in April. I believe it's on the 30th, and that's going to be in Bharani. So it's going to affect a lot of Aries signs. We have a full lunar eclipse in Vishaka. That's going to be the 15th of May, and that's in Scorpio. And we're all going to be undergoing Kalsarpa yoga until April of 2022. And I think that's what's causing a lot of the restrictions that we're feeling.
Oh,
So
It makes sense. I mean,
yeah.
we can feel it.
Yeah, so Kal basically means time and Sarpa means snake. So it indicates being caught in the snake of time, because the snake wraps around the collective consciousness like a rope, and it pulls tighter and tighter the more you try to get out of it. And so the main impact of this yoga is very psychological, and our perceived negativity can become stumbling blocks in our path. And you can feel it in your breath. You can feel the presence of Rahu kind of creating a disturbance and patterns causing anxieties for no apparent reason. So, just important lessons are being faced. We just kind of need to breathe and do our remedies through it. The beauty of Joytish, which is also called the science of light, it throws a light on what's happening. So we can diminish the impact by doing remedies, by knowing what's coming. And just know, yeah.
That's like feng shui, right?
I just want to show one of Amy's pieces. What you said really triggered in me to show this. You were saying wrapped in the snake.
Wow.
Yeah. So
Oh,
this.
she likes it.
No, yes, she does. You mean the person in that?
Yes.
This actually, since I'm working on a book about astrology and about the houses, I can give you all a little hint about astrology in a very easy way. I hope you have me set on what is it?
You want them to see
Speaker
it
view.
bigger?
Yeah, because in astrology, the top of the chart is the 10th house. And the 10th house is all about authority. And the meanings of the houses next to the houses that are on the angles, the 10th house, the first house over here, the 4th house, and the 7th house, the meanings of these houses is based on the angle charts, these positions. So here we have authority. This is the authority that you have to listen to. What is the 9th house? It's the authority of ideas. It's the authority of philosophy. It's the authority of concepts, and it's the authority of things that are better than what you know about. So it has to do with foreign travel and going to foreign travel and finding out about stuff. Okay, so 10th house, authority, and this is the 9th house, the authority of ideas. What's the 11th house? Well, traditionally in astrology, the 11th house is the house of friends, hopes, and wishes. And Michelle Marie was just talking about Saturn entering the first degree of Aquarius. The 11th house is the Aquarius house. It has to do with astrology, but authority of ideas, 11th house, friends, hopes, and wishes, people who get together because they want to be the authority. So it's associations of people like trade unions, mob scenes. We're talking about mass formation. They call it psychosis. It's not psychosis, mass formation, but groups of people who are going out into the world to, you're with people that you don't necessarily like, but you all have a common goal. And I think with the Aquarian age coming up, this is what's going on.
And that can happen naturally, that this mass formation just occurs, right?
It does, yes, it does not have to be designed. And what Jeffrey was saying was and what you responded to him was about the different things that people are into snakes. All these different groups are out there now. So it's not a conspiracy, but
you can find people that are on your wavelength, on your frequency, and that's empowering too, to share those kind of ideas and thoughts.
And that concept of people getting together to
this is one, right?
Yes, exactly. To be an authority. That's the Aquarian age that's coming in. I don't know if it works Vedically, but the Aquarian, the age of Aquarius is an age of groups. And Jeffrey, you were talking about.
Put us on again.
I'm sorry, I just realized I wasn't here. That's okay. You were talking about one time you mentioned that blockchain was going to enable people to not have to have 7,000 passwords.
It's true. I mean, it really depends upon how things get implemented, or at least how we can trust and how trust gets projected and empowered. Blockchain does lots of different things. How we use it is something else, and that's sort of the bigger challenge, that the conflict that exists right now is between the people who have built their businesses using, let's say, the old internet, and want to deal with customers who want the new internet. And that's an absolute conflict. If anyone here has taken my classes on NFTs, you'll appreciate the fact that they're not ready for prime time. The user interfaces, the need for even the term digital wallet, while it may make sense in some circles, from a practical perspective, it doesn't make much sense for people of the internet, people who've been using it as opposed to being born into it. And so there's a lot of principles that need to evolve when it comes to password security and password management. The bigger challenge isn't so much not needing passwords, it's the policies and procedures we follow and the safety we embrace, and being secure and securing your base when it comes to access to your passwords. Because where we see security breached is people doing silly things with their passwords, or using names that are easily rememberable as opposed to combinations of numbers which are hard to break with a strong computer. It is, the practical side of where we are at. It's sort of like, I mean, if we were to have a conversation, is the Web3 emperor not wearing any clothes? The answer is he's buck naked, or she's buck naked, or it's buck naked. There's a lot not there. There are some articles written by very smart people I read in the past week, which will argue that why is everyone talking about Web3? We're not ready for it yet. But of course, we're never ready for the change until it's upon us. So I have to say that the embracement of NFTs into pop culture has forced us down a path that I don't think there's any getting away from. And I do think, on the positive side, being able to engage in meaningful commerce where consumers maintain their data, the big companies don't have all that information, and some of your privacy is actually kept to you, is a good thing.
You
and
bet.
Web3 gives that to us. It gives the power to the people. And if you're a benevolent dictator, your days might be slightly numbered, because the idea of decentralization and using DAOs empowers the community. Because Web 1, Web 2, what was it about? It was always about the company, then its products, then the people who use it, the community. Web 3, the one defining principle, it's community first. It's your audience. It's giving power to the edge. So it's communities. So until now, it's company, product, community. Now it's community, product, company. So that inversion shifts everything. But in terms of password stuff, it's Web3 does provide different levels of security and data access, but most people break their security by doing silly things. So it doesn't matter how much you spent or what you did from a tech perspective. It's, you putting a Post-it note, putting your passwords on your phone and having your phone hacked. All of a sudden, all your passwords are available. Or you leave Post-it notes by your computer and you wonder why people break into your computer. It's because everything is there for the viewing. And sometimes people actually post on Instagram and they actually have included their passwords in their photographs, not realizing it. But you could, with the high resolution photos, you could zoom in and you could steal stuff. So it's the silliness of our habits that break security much more than the ability for people to break into other systems. So it's habits and comfort we just have to be aware of.
I think, with all this technology and all the exciting opportunities, one of the balances, and I can see this in fashion, going a little bit back into nostalgia and romance and soft and dreamy with Jupiter and Pisces. I think we have to feed our souls a little bit, or else we'll become robots. And the AI is a real thing. I used to think that's not going to happen, even though you had a robot. We had a robot as our best man at our wedding.
This is true. And that's 1978.
Really?
Yeah,
We're always a little ahead of our time.
a little. And not like you, but I was playing music when I first moved out here with Amy in 1975. I was playing music, and I had been in bands and I kept doing it. And I thought, you know what? I don't want to play in a band with people because they're crazy. So I made a robot out of the first cassette deck by Advent, which was as big as a New York City Yellow Pages. It was gigantic. And I put it in his chest. He's actually right in one of the closets over here. And then I used the first Roland drum machine for his head, which you hear on Heart of Glass.
His name was Roland.
And his name was Roland because it was a Roland drum machine. It was stamped on the side of his head. And then I had a Shure mic mixer, and I did all this. And it was called a Me, Myself, and I band. A sylph is an imaginary being without a soul. And he was the best man at our wedding, along with the other bands.
So this is 40 some years ago.
Yeah.
And people still, sometimes we're walking down the street and the car will go by and they go, "Hey, Monty, how's Roland?"
Yes, it's true. It's
It was
true.
a little legendary locally.
Well, my father always said I'd end up being 30 years old and be still playing with myself. So it turned out that he was prophetic. So I guess I have a long line of prophecy in my chart.
I wanted to also, because Michelle Marie kind of brought this up, that we're in kind of a challenging, rocky time, that PTSD is a big thing, and trauma from the last 2 years is a big thing. So one of the trends I feel is like new treatments for these things. And, like even on our devices, I think there can be some inventions and innovations, like making our devices more divine, right? And healing. It's a little prediction.
That was good.
Oh, I completely agree with you, Amy. 100%. After going through the pandemic, we have all been scarred in some way or another.
Yeah,
So
100%.
but Vedic knowledge and philosophy, it teaches us that our trials and our suffering, they're not misfortune, because they help us grow. Not to be hurt by others is more difficult not to hurt others. So I think suffering helps us evolve quickly, as it's the substance of spiritual life.
Yeah.
Does it address the collective as much as it does individual charts?
Yes. So, following astrology improved the quality of my personal life, because I'm not simply going through the motions of the day. I'm mindful of the planetary energies at play. So I look at my moon and my ascendant and I see what the planets are doing personally. But as a collective, you could look at the more generational planets, see what's going on with Saturn. What house is he in? What can I kind of expect in the workforce? Look at that 10th house area. So, you can look at it from the terms of the collective, and then back in how it relates to you. So like if you're an Aries, you would watch Mars. If you're a Taurus, you would watch Venus. Gemini would watch Mercury. Cancer would watch Moon. Leo would watch Sun. So you just, Scorpio, Mars, and Pluto. You look at the way that the planets are moving, see how they're going to affect you. And then to look at the big picture, you look at those more generational planets and how they're moving. Like, for instance, the Pluto, I always mention that Amy is the high priestess of the Pluto and Scorpio generation, because that's basically 1983 and beyond. And she's a celebrity on TikTok. Everyone just loves her. And it's because she speaks to them. She speaks to that generation of psychics that are just coming out and going, "What's this? What are you doing? I want to be you when I grow up." So anyway.
I think, we've seen that astrology and tarot and oracles are such a trend. I just think this is going to grow and grow and grow and get deeper and stronger. Not superficial, just so we're going to really tap into a new way of looking at old wisdom.
Well, when a generation is going through as much transformation as we have, especially recently, I think people's reach out to alternative spirituality, something that is a little different, that can really speak to them. And that they can personalize. So,
Yeah.
and that's what's so great about your tools is you guys have created all of these wonderful tools that people can tap into and develop their own intuition and their own method of spirituality. So that's what's beautiful about your stuff.
Well,
Thank
in,
you.
in
Thank
Raja,
you.
Raja Yoga, it says we pray to the Almighty when we get stuck. So I think that explains the trend. I just want to say one thing about Veda and the Indian culture. They knew about the atom 10,000 years ago. So they obviously know what's going on. Their concept of the atom was called Anu, A-N-U, and which is actually the Sumerian word for the god of Nibiru, the leader, the old man leader of that planet. So that is a culture that has been observing for a long time. So I have a lot of respect for Vedic astrology, even though I leave it to you. Because I don't want to confuse myself.
But that reminds me, because you love the Sitchin origins of mankind so much, that is explained in the Sumerian cuneiforms. My friend Zechariah Sitchin interpreted those. But I think that, the age of Pisces was so much about the Bible and Christianity, and this age of Aquarius, I think there's going to be new concepts of where we came from and life on other planets and all of that stuff. I mean, maybe they'll land. Maybe we need that to kind of heal the polarity, right? What if the aliens did land? I'm not predicting this year, but
well, supposedly what, Joe?
They very much may have been here for a very long time and still are here.
Yeah, I agree.
That explains Jeff.
Well,
say that people that your friends may not be. I mean, you have to redefine what an alien is to better understand what I mean.
Well, in genes, in the science of genetics, there are about 200 what they call junk genes, which do not have any use that they know about. And according to the Sitchin work, those are the genes that can get turned on to make you live for a long time, at the very least, the age of Methuselah. And I'm always astounded that the super wealthy are not investigating this. I happen to have a friend who paid for the research, the genetic research on, I think it's in the British Museum. There is this incredibly large sarcophagus of a woman. And
I mean, her head's gigantic, right?
The whole body is gigantic because they were taller than us and paid for this. And
they don't talk about that.
No, and the geneticist said, yes, it's true. This is extraterrestrial, but I ain't saying it because I want to work. It's the same thing. This is the way the world works, right? We can discover the secret of life tomorrow, but if it's going to cost somebody their job, they're not going to share it with anybody. So
do you predicting that some of those things are going to open up about?
Well, they are, and they aren't.
They're talking about UFOs a lot.
Yeah, well, that's true. I don't know. I don't want to get into the UFO predictions. Maybe that's for another show. What do you think, Jeff? I'll pass it to you.
I remember being poolside at our friend Simon and Maria's house, photographing a very faint image of the Milky Way one summer night. And while I was setting up my camera, an incredibly bright light was right where the beginning part of the Milky Way was. And I thought it was someone playing with lights. And I photographed what became, because I was on a tripod, it was an absolute bright line across. So I had looked up for a split second and it disappeared. So other than being maybe an object from Grumman or some other subway, there was a submarine port across the Sound out in Montauk.
In New London.
In New London. If it wasn't some sort of someone doing night patrol over the Montauk, I don't know. I may have seen something. But anyway, a lot of these ideas, right? I mean, the way we understand science, the way we understand energy makes an assumption at some level that we don't already have some of those things in our ecosystems already.
Yeah.
So when you think about first contact, when you think about energy and flow and stuff, who are we to say that some things, may have been around for thousands of years. We just don't recognize it because it's better for us to say, oh, something new is happening rather than something ancient's already been here.
Yeah.
Definitely. And science is always changing.
And so there are lots of places to go off on, but certainly on the DNA side, you could check out DNA that is not needed and what that means. And just introductions there on the breakthroughs, technology and science, or just energetically, there's a lot to be said about understanding or redefining some of those even basic terms. But in terms of UFOs, unidentified flying objects, there will be more of them, not
Yeah.
less.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Now, unidentified by me doesn't mean that it could be unidentified by someone else, because people very much may know about what's happening. I'm more concerned actually about objects called space junk that explode in space, that affect life on the International Space Station and other places, because certain countries decide to do testing in space without thinking about the impact to the lives of the space explorers. And that's actually a real thing. And in the past few weeks, there have been lots of sudden maneuvers had to be done by ISS to avoid not meteors coming in, but little pieces of junk that was floated that as a result of an explosion. So we have a different conversation about energy, new and old. But there's some people I meet who I believe are planetary, meaning they're of this planet, and there are people I meet who I believe are not from this planet. At least their energy is from someplace else, and that's my own personal belief. I'm not saying that they themselves are UFOs or aliens, but they hold energy from star systems far, far away. But they've learned to assimilate here. If nothing else, it makes for good sci-fi. But for the the conversation today, I did notice a few things in the chat. I just want to just bring up to the conversation. One is, what I just thought was fascinating. Any thoughts on Venus retrograde working for us? What planet should a Virgo watch? I think Joyce wrote, is it better to be scarred than scared? I don't know. Maybe I'm misreading that. I mean, I'm just curious.
Definitely.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Okay.
Virgos need to watch Mercury, and Mercury's going retrograde in a couple of days, right, Monty?
Yep.
Yeah. So just prepare for that. Back up all your stuff, especially Virgos who like everything in order. So, and then the other one was
Venus.
Oh, Venus retrograde. Oh, yeah. Just basically recounting all of your relationships, going over your finances, because Venus rules relationships and finances. So I've actually seen a more positive spin on this. I don't know what you've been dealing with clients, Monte, but I have a lot of clients that are women that contact me because they're going through difficult relationships, some of which are abusive. So they're leaving them. So
I actually almost stopped doing readings because I got so tired of hearing about women being abused by relatives and
I'm glad they're taking action, but
Yeah.
you just spoke to one who wasn't. But
Yeah, I did. I block it out of my mind. But in terms of the aliens, I posted on Facebook the other day
let's
about
go
how
back to the alien.
well, because I agree with Jeffrey. We're talking about everything old being new again. I don't know how it is in Vedic astrology, but the Sumerians, according to my friend Zechariah Sitchin, whose work I recommend to everybody if you want to get your mind blown, start off with the 12th planet or Genesis Revisited. Not only did he predict that Uranus and Neptune would look the same when the flybys happen, and they do, but because the Sumerians say it, they knew about the outer planets. So when I talk about a planet, I don't say when Neptune was discovered, I say when it was rediscovered, because the Sumerians knew about Pluto and they counted the planets from the outside in. Pluto was planet number 1, Earth is number 7. So in ancient metaphysics, the number 7 has to do with Earth, because apparently this planet Nibiru that he's talking about has a 3,600-year period around the sun. It got captured, it was exploded out of another galaxy. I mean, it's really fun stuff. And we have a lot of their genetics in us. But in Vedic astrology, did they know about the outer planets a long time ago?
They didn't mention them because they didn't think they could be applied as personally, if that makes any sense. They felt like the closer planets, they stopped at Saturn because they felt that Saturn Saturn represents both Capricorn and Aquarius in the charts. Right. They don't really assign.
Yeah, it used to be that way in Western astrology too. And they call them the personal planets.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the ancient rishis, basically, they meditated and they said the universe is actually within, and the downloads are within the body. So the universe is inside of us. So, in modern astronomy and astrology, we get our telescopes out and our maps, and, Jeff takes the most amazing photos of the sky, and we look at it from that perspective. But back then, 10,000, 15,000 years ago, you could sit in meditation and just access it if you were of a certain level of spiritual development. So yeah, that was what they were tuning into. And
I think that reminds me of another trend, virtual travel, right? Since we've all been isolated in home. So maybe we'll do virtual space travel and virtual inner travel. Just so, you know, in more of the metaverse, right, Jeff?
Oh boy, metaverse.
Let's get into that.
Look, I think the metaverse is inside you as much as anything else, and I think it's an overused term already that is will have no meaning after by the end of this year, because when we talk about metaverse, you know, look, I don't know. I've been accused of living in my own world anyway, so I've been living in my own metaverse most of my life. So
Your sister's shaking her head yes on that.
and
one.
you created Pulveria in what, 2007? So you had this idea well before it was even put out there.
So I did 2007, but you think of anyone who's written science fiction books hundreds of years ago, or for that matter. So I have a conference coming up in a couple of weeks, which is the Von 3 Summit, which is a reimagination of the future of communications in the Web3 world. And one of my friends who's speaking is a gentleman who worked at DC Comics for 50 years, who, when I first met him at a cocktail party, we were talking about comic books. I told him I used to collect it when I was in 6th grade, and that's how I got my first TV appearance. And we just started talking about comic books, and he mentioned that he worked at DC Comics, not knowing, I didn't know who he was. And he then went on to say that, you know, he worked on the storyline of like Wonder Woman and I think Superman at the time. And I said to him, well, don't you need someone's permission to do that? And his answer was, well, I was president of DC Comics when I was doing that. I said, oh, okay. And he went on, and I think the most fun was he's in the Comic-Con Hall of Fame. Now here I was, not knowing who he was, just talking to him we spoke for a good half hour. And meanwhile, all these other people were clamming around wanting to talk to Paul, and what did I know? So it was absolute fun. But I having him talk at the conference about metaverses, because I think when you're managing the lives of different characters, you know, in the comic books, every one of them is in a metaverse or metaverses, and there's no you know, the multiverse, the multiverse, which is no coincidence that Marvel's coming out with its movie with Doctor Strange, and now the thing is pushed to May. It's all interconnected, and so as far as how we imaginate, so whether we you know, are doing imagination inward or outward, right? To some extent, it's an imaginative. When we imaginate, think of metaverse, that we are creating imaginary characters when we grow up that maybe only we see and talk to, maybe not. And then you create stories, and you create wonderful fiction, science or otherwise, where these characters have a life. And so when we're now looking at technology changes, you know, not that long ago, people were using augmented reality, virtual reality as a way to express ideas. Those represent metaverses. The moment you put on Google's to augment put on something to help you visualize and see, you're able to have an augmented reality of a sense. And so a metaverse to some people might be the bringing to life of characters we once imagined. So 2007, there was a company that came into existence before called Second Life. And what I did is I bought land in this imaginary place back in 2007 and had some artists create a conference center for me. And on that conference center, we named the land, they actually named the land Pulveria, it wasn't even me. And it was a conference center for virtual conferences, for concerts. And that was, and because that existed in 2007, when I got into NFTs last year, I decided, okay, I'll use that branding from 2007 and use and create a backstory about what could have happened in my island down there over there. And that brought forward my imagination to create these whole characters to help, which now populate the island that I had. So the metaverse itself will be a multi-billion-dollar business that no one truly understands. Might be $1 trillion in value before the end of it. But what it really represents, the total collective imagination, is really priceless. And the ability to have creativity. One of the nice tech trends of 2021 that's going into 22 and beyond is the embracing of creativity. I mean, the most popular use of NFTs in 2021 was for art. Guess what? Being an artist is cool again. Being able to express your inner art is cool again. So one of the big trends for 2022, from my perspective, is artists to be an artist, to be proud of being an artist, to embrace your inside, and to share.
I'm
And
Right on.
I'm embracing creativity right now.
I see that.
There are so many tools, exceptional tools that help you engage your creativity now. And I think that's just going to grow. And we're just going to have more devices and access, and tools. I mean, you've always been good at that. Jeff's always been good at that. I still make stuff by hand. I still use scissors and
I know people
And
see
so-
Amy's work
so-
and they think it's all like Photoshop, but no, it's all.
And I just use a digital pen.
you have to find your tools. I mean, that's important, and for people to explore and try.
I just use this.
I think that's a big. Who's holding up a coloring book, Barrett? Hi, Barrett. Hey, if anybody has a comment or a question about any of the things that we're talking about, please. Oh, there's
you have your card. Yes.
the karma cards. Yeah.
Oh, Enchanted World's cool. And quantum affirmations. Love it.
Thanks, Joyce.
Thank you.
Oh, you guys are great.
We really haven't jumped into the NFT world, Jeff, because like you said, it's really not ready for prime time. And Amy's art is.
Yes. Yeah.
So,
Wait, you're wearing it.
and I'm wearing it. I don't even have to go away. But
It's
there are cool guys like Barrett who wears Amy's art.
But it's very exciting, right? Even with all the challenges and that we think things have been bad in certain ways. I mean, it's like Michelle Marie, we a lot of us have been able to utilize this time to grow and to grow spiritually and mentally and get ourselves together in different ways and to explore new skills.
And I think people are going to appreciate them a lot more after all these stupid lockdowns stop. And I'm hoping they're going to stop in April when.
Well, you both agree about this April
Yep,
thing.
the end of
Yeah.
Kalsarpa Yoga. Yeah. And someone asked, I think it was Susan, how do we kind of deal with these energies? And I think everyone's a little different, but I think self-care is really key toward a
Yeah.
lot of that. Like I get up in the morning and I do my yoga asanas and I do some breathing and some mantras. I have a little bit of tea. I don't drink coffee anymore because I've got that Gemini rising, so I'm already neurotic. So I just try to keep as calm as possible throughout the day. And, when something is really starting to trigger me, I just do that mantra and just override it. And that tends to kind of help me keep an even keel throughout the day. But, really starting the morning off with, moving the body, relaxing the body, doing some breathing, that really helps me get through the day. And everyone has their own routine, but, I suggest that just adopt what works for you and move into that.
And stick to it.
Yeah,
And it's
that's-
essential. And eating right, and we don't drink. We do yoga together, and the stress is what kills everything. It kills your creativity. It kills your peace of mind. So whatever we can do, whatever tools, and that's what I was saying. I think through our devices. I mean, we know there's meditation tools in our iPhones now, and things that prompt us to breathe more deeply, and what it makes it a little easier to access if you have some company that way.
Well, as the astrologer who's going to be doing rock and crime, thanks to Jeff and Michelle Welsh, just anytime you see things about prisoners, they use the time to exercise. So, if you're locked down, do some push-ups or whatever, and just you could either use the time to run around and go crazy and complain about everything, or use it for self-development.
I'll mention that, one of the benefits of where we are from a communication trend perspective is you never have to be alone anymore if you don't want to. That while people do suffer from loneliness, technically no one ever has to be alone. You between wherever you may be, particularly if you do have access to connectivity, to reach out. And there are lots of support groups and lots of people who care, who give of themselves all over the world. And so on one hand, we never have to be alone. On the other hand, I do recommend, at least for myself, I actually do turn my phone off. There are times I actually disconnect from myself because I find that when I'm too engaged, and even with different messaging apps, this is why it's sometimes difficult for people to reach me, I actually don't look. As impossible as it may seem, to let go of that impulse, to react in real time, which I do on email generally, but not always, but to let go and to build that balance. I may not have a work-life balance because I'm always working or I'm living where I'm working, but to give myself a few hours each day, and particularly at certain times, to like let go, I found that adds to my productivity and my imagination. And I do think that, as we go forward in time, I was, while you were talking, I realized that maybe if it's not 2022, maybe it's 23, but I think we'll have the year of the misfit. I think people who grew up outside the boundaries, people who can draw outside the lines.
That's everybody here, right?
Yeah.
I think we will be appreciated more because of what we can do. We're no longer will be judged on one merit, but we'll have the tools and the ability to do what we want to do, and we'll be understood better because of it. And I see that as a trending platform.
Misfit reporting for duty. That's Diane Ferraro.
It's going to be like your value system determines who you are and who you associate with. I mean, when I'm thinking about the people that care enough about what we've been doing, and we're not making money from doing this, and come to the show, and Michelle Marie, besides being an expert astrologer, comes here every week because we love all being together. And you have these groups who are based on their value system. Not only is it 11th house, but in astrology, the second house is your value system. But the shorthand for the second house is it's your money. It's your movable property. But no, it's your value system on the spiritual level, and it filters down. So you have the first house, which is you, everything you want everybody to know about you. You have the 12th house, which is everything you don't want people to know about you. And then you have the second house, which is here's you and here's your value system, what helps to make you you. And I think everybody who's here has a similarity. And I think Year of the Misfit was pretty brilliant. And besides, so not only has distance died, but loneliness has died. I think your book is coming out.
Can you put up the chart again, Monty? I want to point something out really quick.
Sure.
So you guys see this little south node here? It kind of looks like a little nose ring, and then you've got it on the other side over there. That's the Kalsarpa Yoga. It's hemming in all of the planets there, and they're all from the 7th to the 12th house, which is relationships all the way to so you got your relationships, your career, transformation. I mean, that's pretty much what the snake is encapsulating us in right now. Religion and spirituality, 11th house of collective. Yeah. So we're kind of, the more personal houses are superseded by the collective houses, and we're trapped in that Sarpa yoga. So,
and the south node is easy to spot because it looks like headphones worn underneath your chin, and the north node looks like headphones worn the way baby boomers wear them.
I like that. That's awesome. I love that description.
Speaking of the collective, maybe we can pick some cards just last few minutes for messages for trends of 2022.
Okay. Jeff, do you still have your cards since we haven't been doing readings? Oh, he's got them. Okay,
of course.
I keep them in my hands every show. I just do a lot of shuffling.
Oh, Michelle Marie has the karma cards.
Shuffling
Always.
Meditation.
Yeah.
Weird. Barrett says weird is the new normal.
Wow.
That's
True. That's because yes. Well, also everybody's been through it, and back in the day, it used to be, I follow Guru so-and-so because one day he went into a cave and stayed there for 2 years. Well, fuck, we could do 2 years on our head, like they used to say in the prison movies. I can do 2 years in the hole on my head, and fuck y'all. I mean, every one of us is now like, the prison tough guy. 2 years. I won't go out of my house for 2 years.
Okay, let's pull cards. Now, how should we?
Okay, I'll pull the goddess.
Okay.
Well, goddess.
This is for the collective.
I'm running out of
how to deal with the rest of 2022.
Go, Amy, go.
Ooh.
Wow, be the emperor.
There we go.
Think big.
Oh.
Be the authority of your own world.
And Diane asked about entrepreneurship. This means be your own boss.
And be more detached. It's interesting because we've all been very emotionally challenged, and Jupiter's in Pisces and Venus is going retrograde, all these things that are affecting our emotions, but we have to learn non-attachment also to get the work done.
Right. What'd you get, Michelle? Marie.
You know how we were just talking about Kalsarpa yoga? I got the north and the south node.
Oh, that's crazy.
It is. It's nuts. So yeah, here's the head of the celestial snake right here. Monte's got the head there. That's Rahu. And then here's the tail wrapped around. And he's literally encasing the planet there. So I feel like this year the collective is going to kind of really get into focus on what they want to do versus what they're rejecting, because Ketu is all about rejection and Rahu is all about obsession and moving forward. So I think reevaluating our goals and finding out, rejecting what we don't want and then moving into what we do want is going to be a big theme this year based on getting this. And that's really going to jump out of the bag in April. A lot of us are going to hit the ground running then.
That's a good thing.
And I got recharge, nurture, and counsel.
Oh, perfect.
Wow.
We're
Yeah.
still recharging. Yes.
Yeah.
We're going to recharge our PTSD, right?
Right. And I got from the Wild Goddess Oracle, the Seeker.
Ooh.
Ooh.
And the Seeker is breakthrough. I don't know if you can see, but she's breaking through.
The portal.
Yeah.
She's stepping through a new dimension.
Yeah. And I think that's really what's coming out, because, people like, I can't wait to get back to normal. Well, guess what? That ain't happening.
Let's go through to the next.
Right. I mean, this is a
Okay.
jump start on the future, and it's up to all of us to jumpstart our future.
Yes. The future is now.
Yeah, it's so true. Yeah. Things that used to be cliches. I don't think there's anybody who doesn't appreciate the stuff that we used to take for granted. I'm going to get on the subway, or I'm going to go outside and go for a walk in
Go to a
town.
restaurant.
I'm going to go to the food and get grocery. I'm going to go to the store and get groceries. So
How's it
that's
in Washington State.
yeah, yeah.
Hey,
Like Julie Molinari says, this time of stillness coming into April is meant for us to reconnect with our spiritual team. We will be integrated to move forward. That's great. I like that.
during eclipses, do relationships end sometimes? You bet. We could do a whole show on that.
I just got the 2-minute warning, by the way. 2 minutes.
Okay. And I just want to say one more thing to add to the South and North Node. When the sun, when you have a new moon or a full moon near the nodes, that's when eclipses happen.
Yep, that's
Because
exactly right.
That's what the nodes are, because
Not
the
a-
nodes
Oh,
are
sorry.
where the moon's orbit intersects with the ecliptic, the equator projected out into space. And that's where, when you see sun and moon coming together or opposite, there's going to be an eclipse.
And we have one on election day this year in the United States. Lunar
We
eclipse.
certainly do. And eclipses indicate reversals.
It's not going to be the old way.
No.
It's going to be a new way.
Right.
It's something to look forward to.
All right,
Yes.
so we have 1 minute left. Closing thoughts, Monty and Amy?
I feel a sense of excitement
Yeah.
for this year. I feel a new frequency happening.
And Michelle Marie?
Well, I did get out of a Vedic conference, and they basically said that the last 3 years for the United States were in auspicious nakshatras and energies, but this year is a good one. So I'm feeling positive.
It's a year of the tiger also in Chinese astrology.
Yeah,
The water tiger, and that's supposed to be compatible and maybe healing.
And Jeff, what do you say for the future of 2022? Seems like a transitional year from what you said.
I think it is going to be a transitional year. I think the future is unwritten and it's unbounded. And so we will use these technologies to figure out what is best for us. And rather than me to tell you what will be, you will see that these are platforms for people to come out and use. They will continue to evolve, and we will see things differently as a result of what's being created now.
Thank
And
you.
with
Wonderful.
that, I would like to thank Monty and Amy and a very special guest, Michelle Marie. I'll give a shout out to Lauren, healing energy
you.
to Harry.
Yep.
And say if it's Mondays, it's time for.
Ask the oracles.
And we'll be back next week. Thank you all for a wonderful show. Thank you all for joining us both live and on our podcast.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Recording stopped.
We're getting good at this.
That was fun.
Thank